Welcome to Salon Talks. I'm Alli Joseph, and today I'm joined by actress, producer, and star of the hit Netflix series Firefly Lane. Eagerly awaited and now in its second season after I think a year-long hiatus, Firefly Lane stars Heigl and Sarah Chalke, who reprise the roles as lifelong best friends facing life's ups and downs over 30 years. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you so much for having me.
I so appreciate it. You're in a nice hotel. I'm in my crap-filled bedroom, which you can't see. Be glad. And you look really cozy in your cashmere. Just wanted to jump right in and talk about the sort of the storyline here, which I think an intermittently fractured and soul sister best friend story is relatable to almost any woman who's had a lifelong woman friend relationship, and I'm sure some women as well. When you first read the script, how did it resonate with your own experience?
Well, I think for me, and initially I read it and I was so enthralled, and at that point, all I had was a pilot script essentially, or the first script. And the story was so familiar to me, and it says right on the cover, based on the novel by Kristen Hanna. And I thought, I think I read this book, this story feels really familiar. So I went to the local bookstore, got the book, and read it again. And I was working at the time in Toronto on Suits, and I would read between scenes or between setups and was just sobbing by the end. I was so deeply moved by these two women, their story. I found it incredibly engaging, just getting to follow them through these decades. And yeah, incredibly relatable in that, probably I have several very close female friendships. My sister and mother being the most prevalent. And those relationships, yeah, some ups and downs, and I think what I loved about it was that I just felt less alone in this idea that not everything is a perfect fairy tale all the time, that there are struggles within any relationship that is significant and important in your life. Nothing is just smooth traveling for, anybody. And I felt like it was just incredibly relatable in that way and beautiful. And that it doesn't, sometimes those relationships fracture for life. There can be things that are just too far, but often they mend again. And that there's that hope too,
Absolutely. Did you work at all with the author on translating the story for broadcast? I know you're an executive producer in the second season, especially.
Yes, I did. And Kristen, to me, I'm a giant reader. I've been since I was when I learned to read, and fiction is my favorite. So once I got over my initial fanned out kind of behavior, I started being able to have real conversations with Kristen about character, about maintaining the integrity of her story, the integrity of these women and their friendship. That was the number one biggest priority and Maggie Friedman, our creator, in terms of understanding how to sort of translate something that on the page to the screen. That is not my forte. I don't know how to do that. And so she understood that, but it did mean at times we were going to deviate from the book, which is always very difficult for me. I always want to stick right to the material. I want to tell exactly what's on the page of the book. So I had to be able to back off and let Maggie do her thing. And the only thing I just kept hitting home was the integrity of this friendship. The integrity of this friendship needs to stay the same as the book. That's the most important thing to me. And I think when I first read the first script and had a conversation with Maggie, and I don't know if you remember from that episode, it feels very much like Tully's going to have an affair with Johnny. It's left as this big cliffhanger. And I said, listen, I love this story. I love these characters. I won't do it though, if that's where you're going with this, because no friendship would survive that.
No, that's the girl code. You can't.
That is the girl code. No friendship would survive that. And this friendship must survive. And she said, no, 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 that's just a cliffhanger. We're just doing that to mess with the audience. You know, we're not going there. I said, fantastic. And it was Kristen's only thing. Like, there were two things, and I won't say the second because it will give everything away. But there were two things that Kristen said, you must maintain to the story, and everything else, you know, whatever you like, you know.
That's, you know, so much of that, you mentioned that you were crying reading the book, and it's sometimes really hard to translate the nuance of the written word to the screen, right? Because you, I'm sure, as on one side as a performer, and then also as a producer, want to keep the integrity, right? And so it's like, how do you convey that in your own acting? Did you guys took a long hiatus, it seemed like, between filming the seasons? Lots of productions did. What does it feel like to put a character like Tully away for a while, I assume, and then do other projects, cut your hair, do all the things, and then get reacquainted?
Well, what's really interesting is that we wrapped the first season, I want to say mid-January of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? When did the pandemic begin? 2019.
2020, like March of 2020. Yeah.
Okay. So that it was January 2020, we wrapped. We were in Vancouver. People were starting to get really sick on set and just not getting better, and bad respiratory issues and stuff. And we were just like, good Lord, there's a terrible flu going around. Mm-hmm. And then I came home, we wrapped the season, and within 2 months, you know, the world shut down. So the show, the character, the experience became very backseat to what was going on in the world, what was going on in my family, what was going on in my life. And suddenly I had this 1.5 years off of work because no one was, well, for a good bit, no one was working. Anything that was in production was, you know, difficult to say the least, because somebody could get sick, or, you know, the lead of the show could get sick, and suddenly the whole production would shut down. And, you know, I just went, I'm not going to begin something in this place of the pandemic. So I took a full 1.5 years off. You know, I hesitate to say it because it was such a difficult and tragic time for many, many people, but there was some grace in it for me. That 1.5 years was the longest I'd had off of work since I was 16. And I was able to really settle into just one role, which was mom and wife and daughter and sister. Like, that was, well, I guess that's quite a few roles, but it's easier to take all the other ones off the plate and just kind of settle into one thing.
Did you like that sort of, it sounds like you did a lot, and a lot of people have reflected this way on that time that I've spoken with, both just locally and farther afield. And I don't think there's anything to apologize for slowing down, you know, and feeling the value proposition of the things that, when we can focus on them, I think we realize are the most important. Like, as a parent, I always say, as a mom, that's my most important job personally. And that's the job that I care the most about doing well in. Yeah. But life takes you in many directions, and you feel pulled at all ends. And so I think that's a huge gift.
It was for me. It was an opportunity to prioritize my family and my children and my home and my own time and needs, you know, that often, you know, take a very big back seat to everybody else's, like, especially children and family. But then, of course, my career, you know, if I'm tired, I'm sick, I need a moment to, you know, just meditate. Like, no, that's all gonna have to wait. You got all these other priorities on the table. So it was a blessing for me. I think definitely by the time I went back to work on Firefly, I was ready. You know, I was done with dishes
making
and
sourdough bread and dishes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I was, you know, and I said to my girlfriends, and I don't think, because my whole career and my, from the beginning of becoming a mother, I have had help. I've had to. Mm-hmm. Doing it all myself suddenly. Well, my husband helps. Thank God. I would murder him if he didn't. Um, we are partners in this. He takes a step up too, but it's a lot. And I said to my girlfriends, this is full-time mothering and housewifery is way harder than what I do for work. Much harder. And there's way more at stake, obviously.
Right.
So I'm ready to just be like, you guys will be fine with dad.
You guys got this. Bye.
Bye.
Well, there's a time for everything, but I'm glad that you had that. I had it as well, and a lot of people I know, and amidst all the sadness and the loss that many of us had, there's that.
Yeah.
That was the grace to me. You've been a producer for a long time now, and I personally was buoyed to learn that you are a Robert Frost fan like me, and named your production company after a lesser known character, I think in Provide, right? And indeed, watch how I bring it all back. Beauty and fame in Hollywood are fleeting, right? But like Firefly Lane's Tully and Kate, I do really feel like friendship sustains. So what does that metaphor mean to you?
That metaphor for me was, it has been in the back of my mind, circling my brain from the moment I understood it, which was probably in my late teens, early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I think the perspective of it for me was very important, because if I had fallen to prey to the vanity of all of this, to the early praise of youth and beauty, I think emotionally I would be pretty destroyed by the time I hit 40. And as 40 approached, I knew what it all meant then. I know what it all means now. I know what it will mean in the future. And that perspective has been, a real blessing. I think it's so interesting because I would love to know what inspired Robert Frost to write that poem. Obviously, he wasn't, a beauty in Hollywood in his youth. So who inspired it? How was it? How did it come about? But boy, it has been a blessing for me. And it's a bit tongue in cheek. It's me kind of in a bit of a way thumbing my nose at what Hollywood has told me to value my whole life. Mm-hmm. I know my value. And to me, the youth and beauty of what they all thought was so important about me is the least interesting thing about me. And if I made it the most important thing, I'd be pretty damn screwed. So 100%. I have cultivated spirit and character and integrity and passion that has nothing to do with how I look.
And indeed, you've come a really long way since Izzy, right? Your blonde model character in Grey's Anatomy. And so, as a young actor, I'm sure that you were thrilled to be a series regular, but how have you felt about typecasting in Hollywood, and how has that affected your career, if at all?
Well, quite frankly, thank God, because if I wouldn't have had a role if they didn't cast me to be the white blonde girl. That's who I was. And I thought it was a really interesting character and a really interesting casting, because in a way, Shonda, that was a bit tongue in cheek. Like, Izzy was a cliche in a way of that kind of girl, but yet here she was doing something extraordinary with her life that many, she wasn't an influencer on Instagram. She was trying to be a surgeon, and she was coming out of a situation, a trailer park situation in her life with very little means, very little opportunity for education, a mother that was kind of unstable, but still this passion to do something difficult, very hard. And I met a young girl at the airport coming to New York who told me how influenced she has been by Grey's Anatomy, and she's pursuing a medical career because of it, and studying to be a surgeon. And I went, wow, like I would have watched that show as a young girl and definitely not been inspired to be a surgeon, because that is a lot of work. That's a lot of years of education. That's a lot of studying. That's a lot before you ever even get there. And that kind of emotional, intellectual fortitude is very impressive to me. And certainly I feel incredibly proud in a small way to have influenced this, I mean, this wonderful young woman to do something so important and significant with her life. But Izzy was that girl, you know, that somebody somewhere inspired. She wasn't just a blonde, white, big boobed girl who could have just made that her profession, you know, like me. Yeah.
I said nothing. Uh, so now, on a lighter note, I'm like an armchair doctor. I'm like a medical nerd. Did you absorb a lot from that? Are you like the person in your house that the kids go to or your husband goes to, or no, not what? So you don't remember any of it? Nothing. Can't put on a Band-Aid.
No, don't take any of that seriously. I have a couple hypochondriacs in my house, so I let them deal with that. I got, yesterday or the other day, my 5-year-old came downstairs. He'd fallen on his Lego and he had the smallest, tiniest nick on his knee, and he was limping in.
The trauma.
I'm bleeding, and I just was like, oh, you'll be okay. And then I just go back to doing whatever I'm doing. And it's dad and his sisters will go, we got to get a Band-Aid. Where's the alcohol wipe?
I know. I'm like, take a Tylenol. Yeah. Bye. See you later. I know. And yet I'm like, researching and diagnosing things, where I shouldn't be. So I wish I had gone to medical school. That's so no, that made you kind of my, one of my favorite characters. Yeah. And I have an actress friend who all these years later is on that show as a like recurring, which is always funny to me.
That is cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's still going. Just like,
yes, it is.
Never runs out of gas. So
people really love it.
So, you mentioned, you touched on some of the dynamics in your household, and I know you've been really private about your family life, which I admire, but I did notice that you've been sharing a bit more publicly about your children now that they're older, particularly when there's milestones, birthdays, things like that. How has it being a parent in these uncertain times changed your way of looking at the world, do you think?
Man, it's pretty tough. There's a lot of fear surrounding it all. Like, am I on top of this enough? Am I paying enough attention? Do I know what they're up to? Do I know what they're seeing? Do I know what's being thrown in their faces on these devices all the time? And no, I don't always. I will walk into a room and be like, my God, what are you watching? And just the horror, like my 5-year-old's watching some really creepy scene from Alien, I'm like, aren't you traumatized? And he's like, no, do you know what that's called? It's called an allegorigan or something. And you're going, okay, I need to, how do I put limits on the television and on YouTube and on everything? And some of it is just going, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay, because we're going to keep talking about this. We're going to sit at the dinner table together, and we're going to have these conversations, and I'm going to keep hammering into them, especially with my daughters. This is fake. It's all fake. And it's okay that it's fake. No judgment, but nobody looks like this all the time. Nobody's life looks like this all the time. No 16-year-old looks like this all the time. Okay. It's fake, but that's all right, because nobody puts their shittiest picture in an album for the world to see. Mm-hmm. It's understandable why they do it, but don't believe it all the time. And I know that that's a hard concept to understand. I know it's hard to internalize, but I think they will. And they are actually getting savvier and savvier about all of that, the younger and younger. They're like, yeah, that's a filter, I can tell. Mm-hmm. Or, yeah, I know she doesn't look like that in real life because I've seen it, and you're going, okay, you understand the distinction. That's all I need you to understand. You don't have to look like that. Nobody does. Mm-hmm. And then also just my own responsibility in it. Like, it's very tempting, the older I get, to filter the ever living crap out of myself for any photo, any video, any whatever. And they now have all these lovely apps that will do that. And I did it to myself the other day to send just a photo to my husband. It was just, I wanted him to see, like, I put a wig on and had long blonde hair.
He was like, oh my God, you're back.
No, we know why I sent that. But I it was terrible lighting in this hair salon. I looked like, I hadn't slept in a year or something. And I was like, oh, what can I do to fix all this? And I looked at it after I'd done it and went, I deleted it because I was like, that's not me. And he's going to know that. And I feel like the vanity attached to that was just uncomfortable for me. So I get it. It's tempting, but it's not real. And then, it's like so many young women, like really young, 15, 16, trying on adulthood very early and posting it. And that, I struggle with that because the best part of my childhood was that I was a child. I look back at that and think, God, thank God I had that. Everything was very black and white. I did what my parents told me to do. I liked not having to make these big monumental choices. And then you get old enough, 20, 21, and you start having to make those choices for yourself, find your own morality, integrity, character. Let us do that for you when you're young. It's coming soon enough. So I don't know. They make it look so enticing to the
Oh
young.
yes, there's the siren song of, just do this makeup or what. I have an almost 15-year-old, so I'm in the trenches every day. It's rough. Oh, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's very rough out here, and every day I feel like I'm on a log roll. I talk about this a lot, and
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
uncertain, and I don't like to feel uncertain. And you seem like the kind of person who doesn't either. And usually I'm pretty decisive, and I'm just like at sea.
Yeah. Because if you say you can't participate,
Mm-hmm.
and I did for a long time, I said, you cannot have Snapchat. Still, I don't want Snapchat.
Same.
You cannot have TikTok. You cannot have Instagram. Here's YouTube Kids. That's what you can watch, and then you are isolating them from their peers because that's not the world they live in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mom and I have talked a lot about this because, you think my mother would be like, absolutely don't let them have it. She's like, no, you can't do that to them. That's not the world they live in. They must have some access, monitor the access. But if they go to school and everybody at school's talking about this new trend or that new trend or this viral video, and they have no idea what their friends are talking about and can't participate at all, they're going to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that. So then I thought, okay, the next best thing I can do, and I'm very grateful that Apple has all of those notification controls and all this stuff that you can now monitor as a parent from your own device.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really just about, and you're still missing stuff. I mean, there's still stuff sliding through that you're not paying attention to or didn't catch, but it's the conversations. I just keep trying to have conversations about it and hope that it's sinking in, and that, I do a lot of educating through television. So I forced them to watch certain things with me. For a while, it was Glee. My daughter and I really were enjoying Glee together. And there's so many great young person life lessons that I would pause and be like, okay, let's talk about this for a minute, because I think it's really important what they're saying here. And I'm like that person who's
Like, Mom, stop interrupting.
I know. And she's like, I get it. But, that's how I kind of try to start those conversations with them, and make it feel relatable. Because here it is right on the television. Look at these actors telling the story. Obviously, I'm passionate about storytelling.
And now you have Badlands Ranch in memory of your brother, and you're making healthy pet food. So tell me the genesis of you and your brother's love of animals.
My mother really began the foundation, and really it was her passion and her desire to create this legacy for a child who couldn't create his own. So my brother was a very interesting, unique young man. He was very passionate, inspired by the underdogs, by the injustices of the world, by the voiceless and the innocent. And my mother jokes that it's like the mafia. Once you're in, you're in. There's no getting out. Once your eyes are open to what is happening in our country, you can never shut them again. So it is a vocation. It is a lifelong vocation. I know that it doesn't have to be this way. The problem is getting our world to change. So we will just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And the beauty of the Badlands food is that it was such a blessing because, I sort of approached, they knew I liked animals. They knew I liked dogs. How about a dog food line? And I thought, why? Like, there's a million dog food brands. What do I have to add to this that would be significant or be any different? Or, right now I feel like, aren't we just adding to the confusion? There's so many in the aisle already. It's hard enough to choose. And I started trying to distill down, well, what would I choose? And what have I been choosing in the dog food aisle? And what do I feel passionate about? And what can I do to improve it? And I'm really passionate about like plant medicine and holistic healing. I got a little bit of a witch in me, so I like to make tinctures, and I really believe in the power of and the healing of nature. I don't eschew science and medicine. I like them both together. But I thought, can we add this to dog food? Can they digest this sort of thing? Can these herbs and plants and adaptogens help them too? Because that's the biggest thing I'm seeing. I have 8 dogs, variety of dogs. I'm seeing a lot of anxiety issues. I'm seeing a lot of cancer. I'm seeing a lot of health issues, a lot of digestion issues, a lot of weight issues. What can I do? What can we do with this food that can help some of that? So that is how it kind of became what it is. And it's going to be an incredible help in us continuing to fund the foundation and its programs. Nancy and I have financially funded it since its impetus. And we probably really could use a fundraiser or two.
Okay, so you're asking for it now. And
it's a financial burden that it has become more and more apparent. I cannot completely carry on my own shoulders. I have tried. I've been doing that. My mother has been doing that. My mother has put $1.4 million in since January alone of her own money. I don't think Bill Gates could carry it by himself. Sometimes it feels like a weight that no one can lift. But I won't give up. You can also look at the programs we fund that we feel passionate about: spay and neuter, transportation, medical, a lot of animals in the shelters that are just languishing and dying, and that they're euthanizing and are in pain and are suffering. So we get them out and we get them to the vet and we get them the medical they need. And then buy the food, guys, and know that almost all that money is also going to the animals. I'm going to keep a little for myself because I am not Mother Teresa, nor
keep
Jesus.
the lights on. Keep the lights on while you're making the food.
Yeah, just maybe,
keep a little for yourself. Well, I will buy the food, and I'm grateful for your time. I love the show, and I can tell that was emotional to talk about. So we shall end on a secret talent you have that would surprise people.
Oh. Shit. Do I have a secret
I
talent?
can gargle Eine kleine Nachtmusik. Wait.
What is that? I don't know what that. You can gargle to that?
Yeah, it's gross. I mean, I have water. I could do it, but really it's about you.
That's incredible. I mean,
Isn't that gross? It's so gross. It's very lowbrow, but also highbrow.
The only secret talent I have, I didn't consider it a talent, but it's a bit of a party trick, is I can cross one eye and make the other one kind of wander around.
I love that. But as your mother would say, don't do that. Oh my God, it might get stuck.
Yeah. My children like it.
This is Katherine Heigl. She's starring in the 2nd season of Firefly Lane on Netflix. It drops the 2nd of December?
Friday, right? Yeah.
Friday, the 2nd of December. Check it out. Starring and executive producing, amazing 2nd season so far from what I've seen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And all the good work that you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.